Okay, I want to show you. This is coppermoonshinestills.com, and I just popped out the menu, if you will, up from the top, and I'm going down here to state citizen passport. See if I can get that to launch. Okay, beat the law with a state citizenship passport diplomatic immunity. Silver bullet to your rights secured by the Constitution. And it's quite a long page, you're going to have to study this and read this quite a bit. But this is what I did. This is what I did to take myself out of the corporation of the United States of America. In other words, I corrected the record. They got me to lie on my passports. Of course, my mother filled my first passport out for me. I'm sure of that. Lorraine, come here. Down. Down. Good girl, good down. So what I did is I followed this guy's menu, if you will, to the letter. My understanding is that there actually is a higher level to do this at. And one would do that by not just apostilling your birth certificate with the Secretary of State, but then also taking it and then registering the document with your county registrar's office, your recorder's office. And supposedly when you send in that level of a document for your new passport, you end up with a possible diplomatic immunity passport. Now, I don't know if I have diplomatic immunity. My passport doesn't say that. I heard that you get as many as 5 stars on it, and that shows you got diplomatic immunity. But my last passport had just the oak leaf cluster around above the photograph with USA in it. So basically, what I had to do was correct the record. And they set these forms up to get you to lie about yourself. And you don't know that you're lying because you say, yeah, well, of course I'm a citizen of the United States. No, you're a citizen of your state. The only people that are 14th Amendment citizens were the blacks of the South. Not even the American natives were made citizens with the 14th Amendment. They were counted as 0 people, no representation at the congressional level, whereas blacks were counted a whopping 3/10 of a man. And the reason the North forced that on the South was they didn't want to have a whole lot of congressmen from the southern states representing them, outvoting them. So what I did is I did not supply my original passport with this, but I guess they got it anyway, and I ended up getting it back. But I got the passport in 2 weeks. Now I kept trying to make an appointment in the area I was wintering in, and I couldn't get an appointment for at least 6 weeks, 2 months. And they kept screwing that up on me. So they don't make it easy for you to get the physical in-person appointment you need to have. And I was visiting friends in the middle of the country, and they told me, well, we just go down to the public library here, and they take care of it. And I'll be doggone. I set up an appointment for the next day at 1 o'clock. I drove down there, 45-minute drive, walked in, and, she kept trying to take the passport as evidence of my citizenship. It's, no, you've got to use this birth certificate. So I did the birth certificate, and of course, I happened to be born in one of the original 13 colonies, one of the original 13 states, which is considered not a debtor state. The other states are considered debtor states. And so there are special privileges. What I've been told, don't ask me what they are, for those who were born citizens of the original 13 colonies. Now, I'm not a citizen of the state of New Hampshire. That's the title they give to their corporation. And they're not supposed to be corporations. Our Constitution guarantees us a republic form of government at the state level and at the federal level. Of course, we don't have that. They give it lip service. They pretend it's the law of the land. No, and they hoodwink us all the time. It's always bait and switch. So now, if I have to go into court, I have to present myself as a citizen of New Hampshire. You see, before the Civil War, we all got our citizenship from our states. That's how we got our citizenship. Now, my passport does say United States of America. It does have that on it, but I filled it out properly to the letter, just the way this guy said to do it, including the little modifications to the address lines. And I paid for it the way he recommended paying for it. And I didn't put any extra fees on top of that to expedite it. And I got it in 2 weeks. I was shocked. Usually it takes a couple of months. So, and I've been asked, are you going to get a RealID so you can travel? What do I need that for? I've got a passport. My passport is my passport to travel inside and outside the country. That's what I'm going to use. I'm not going to use the RealID. I'm not going to jump through those hoops. I'm not going to volunteer for that digital imprisonment. And that's a big problem, and they're trying their best to push the RealID out there. And believe me, Trump's just the perfect Trojan horse to sell these dumbass Americans on a real bad idea. If you've read the Bible, you know that you're not supposed to be taking a census. And yet in this country, we have to do a census to base our representation properly on it, which is not done properly anyway. So we are so far from having a republic, which is not funny. And of course, Lincoln, who was really Rothschild, Abraham Lincoln Rothschild, Abraham Lincoln Silver Springsteen Rothschild, he destroyed the Jeffersonian Republic and gave us a Lincolnian Republic, which is a corporation. Our founders would never stand for this. And by the way, the whole purpose of the Civil War was to defend the Constitution. It wasn't to defend slavery. It wasn't for unfair taxation. The South was being taxed at $8 million a year, and the North was only paying $2 million a year for the total federal annual budget of $10 million a year. I thought it was based upon that, because Fort Sumter was a duty station, a tariff station, customs station. Anyway, we have been taken over from within, very slowly and insidiously. We are controlled by people that complain that nobody loves them around the planet and they get kicked out everywhere. But we're also being occupied by somebody that's destroyed our economy, that's stolen everything. All of our institutions, all by grand theft. A giant fraud using this money system, which is unconstitutional. And I don't think that Trump is going to succeed, and I hope he doesn't. I don't want to see people with RealIDs out there having to show that shit across the highways to be able to drive around. No, I'm pulling out my passport. That's it. Deal with it, man. It's on record. It's done properly. It's lawful. It's legal. It's constitutional. But my hope is that it doesn't come down to us being stopped papers, please. But it could come down to that, and Trump would be the perfect asshole to do that to this country. And you are a bunch of perfect assholes to have it done to you. The United Stupid States of America. You are the biggest communist nation on the face of the world. You're more communist than the Red Chinese. And you have no idea. You're run by a series of interlocking corporate boards. Same people sit on the boards. A group of about 700 people run the entire country. And they dictate, by owning a little bit of stock, just the right amount, they dictate to the rest of the companies and what's going to happen. And that includes their slow kill technology they keep rolling out against us perpetually. They're never going to stop doing that until we take them out of office. I know a lot of you say Alexander Hamilton started our stock market, started our mercantile economy. We need to thank him for that. And he's on a $10 bill. But you got to realize Alexander Hamilton had another last name. And Alexander Hamilton worshipped George Washington and wanted George Washington to become king. And Alexander Hamilton was blackmailed by a husband and wife team. And ultimately he died in a duel. He was from Jamaica. And he was a mixed race man. And he adopted the name Hamilton, but his real name was Cohen. C-A apostrophe C-U apostrophe I-N. Another version of spelling the word Cohen. George Washington loved the synagogue in Rhode Island and wanted them to stay there. And of course, he welcomed them there. And because of him, we got stuck with them there. And that's where they ran the slave trade, was out of Providence, Rhode Island. You should see the ships. They're all painted up and beautiful now. They ain't stinky like they used to be. But that was the major port for the slave vessels here. And they got the blessing of George Washington. Now, who the hell ordered him to do that, I don't know. But my understanding is George Washington was actually our third president and not our first president. A friend of mine had a book that had all that documented. And he gave it to somebody or sold it to somebody. And he wishes he hadn't done it. I wished he hadn't done it as well. But we do know that the 13th Amendment was the law of the land. And it was actually published by the United States Congress in part of their official documents in about 1848. Got a friend with an original copy of that. But you need to understand that these bastards have censored the record every opportunity they get. They change the scientific knowledge base, the terms, and everything to obscure things from us. They do that with the legal language. My God, it's amazing we don't, actually speak Latin in this country. Yeah, but that's not the worst profession. That's the second worst profession. And my profession is the third worst. We took America down with the wokeness, and we brought that into the American Psychological Association, in particular through the Seligman family. University of Pennsylvania learned helplessness and other experiments which they could not publish and do above board because they were so unethical. So I recommend that you get a proper passport for your state. I recommend you go to coppermoonshinestills.com, and he's got all kinds of formulas for brewing up moonshine. I don't do well with alcohol, so I don't do that stuff, and I'd rather pay somebody to poison me, I guess, than to do it myself and kill myself. But silver bullet to your right secured by the Constitution, a treatise on state citizenship. Believe me, the guys at the Alamo weren't bragging about being Americans. They were Americans, but they are always a citizen from the great state of, the citizen from Illinois, the citizen from Massachusetts, the citizen from New Hampshire, the citizen from Maine, the citizen from Virginia, the citizen from West Virginia, the citizen from New Jersey, the citizen from Pennsylvania, the citizen from Vermont, the citizen from North Carolina, the citizen from South Carolina. And the citizen from Alabama. You've got to get your rightful passport and travel with that. Otherwise, you're volunteering to be part of their digital prison. And they've got the pieces out there. But once we all have this thing that they put Kristi Noem out there as a happy, pretty face to sell us on, you don't want a real ID. A real ID is unconstitutional, and it's part of their spy system, just like their cell phones. By the way, my computer's on the way out. It's 15 years old. But I don't want to get a new one because I don't want to spend money on my own prison system. And remember, 80% of the electricity consumed inside this country goes to your prisons. That's right, your electronic prison, all the data mining that they do in all these large metropolitan areas, it powers them. And those are using 80% of the electricity. So imagine what happened to the cost of electricity if suddenly all that electricity was available on the open market and we weren't funding our own demise, our own imprisonment. Yes, I encourage you to take yourself out of the system. Now, if you are of African descent, it could be from South Africa, in which case you'd be white as could be. Uh, who knows? They want to call them all Africans. It's kind of weird to me. But if you are of descent from the original blacks in America, then you were made a 14th Amendment citizen. And yes, that is the honest truth. That's what you're stuck with on your passport. You're not a citizen of the state you were born in. However, I would tell you, if you're a black man or mulatto, that you file for a state citizenship passport anyway. Why? Because it'll pull you out of their system. According to my buddies, there's a do not detain order on these passports. They're not supposed to detain us because we are not under their corporate rules and laws and regulations. Now, don't hold me to the defense of yourself on that, because I don't really know how to do that stuff very well. I'm just learning, and I'm learning late in life. My parents were extremely disappointed because I didn't go to law school. But now, in arrears, I can see the reason why I was not allowed to go to law school. Yahweh didn't want me becoming one of those bar bastards. British Accreditation Regency, through which the king and the queen rule their subjects in America. No, we are not independent. We've never been independent. All of our presidents recognize the authority that the British have over us. The unfortunate thing is that it looks like Ben Franklin made a mistake. One of those two treaties of Paris, he signed with a fellow who had two different hats. He wore one representing the King of England and the other one as the exchequer for the Pope. And by citing that, Ben Franklin actually created the first corporation of the United States. Now, was it wittingly or unwittingly? And we also heard that Ben Franklin was marginalized, that he was entertained at the Hellfire Club in Paris to loosen his ass up with broads and booze so he would sign us over. Now, that may be what happened. But on the other side, Cotton Mather, was an older gentleman, and he took the young, brilliant Ben Franklin under his wing to be an agent to help us out. So we really don't know what happened there. There is a woman up at Big Lake, just outside of Wasilla, Alaska, and she was an attorney working for the Vatican. And she understands this stuff, but she doesn't share it with us very readily. She's too busy soliciting donations from the rest of us. We owe her for their fighting for our freedom, and they try to lord us over us. It's a group of women that have bevied together to make the rest of us feel guilty, and that we have to somehow support them, and they're earning their keep because they're fighting for our freedom. She's not very much out there telling us the truth, and the fact that she's credentialed as a jurist, as a doggone judge with the Vatican, bothers the hell out of me. So you have Latin, and that's what they use to bamboozle us, and they also do the language up, and they patent it up and give it opposite meanings, and they screw with us every which way using their babble, using their language bullshit stuff. But there's one profession far worse, and that profession uses the Greek language. All of their chemicals are classified using Greek language. And the body that they're supposed to be treating was all categorized using the Latin language. And they come from an ancient tradition of swindling in upland Greece. Yeah, I went up there to see that place, and They would take a woman and drug her out of her mind and have her sit on this tripod of a seat on top of this venting of geological gases from the earth. And they drug her up and she'd go into a trance and get kind of wild. And then, of course, the priests were there overseeing all this, and they would tell the patron who hired this woman to be a medium for them and give them an oracle reading. The priests were there, and they had to translate for the customer. And they also majored in poisons. They sold people who wanted to kill their enemies the poisons and the antidotes, so they wouldn't accidentally kill themselves. That's why we ended up with poisons for medications. It came out of the Oracle of Greece. Yes, your medical profession is the most dangerous profession in the world and the most evil profession. And they do their best in this country to keep non-Jews out of those professions. If you're a Jewish individual, they will help fast track you into one of those graduate school spots. But if you're not one of their people, they block your ass. They blocked mine. They stopped me. They did their best to undermine me and the family. My family, though, was a bunch of dumbasses and didn't realize what was going on, didn't recognize it. And I just happened to be gifted enough so I can remember what the hell they did to me and how horrible they treated me in Winthrop, Massachusetts. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're the most racist people, most prejudicial people on the face of the earth. That's right. And I'm not talking about the blacks. I'm talking about those poor Jews that I lived with out there in Winthrop, Massachusetts. It's not universal. Some of them were fine people. I had some friends there. But I want you to know this. The first slave owner in the New World was Mr. Johnson. He was a citizen of the state of Virginia, the colony of Virginia. And he went to court and took his white indentured servant to court 3 times because he escaped from him 3 times. The indentured servant owed him 2 years of labor, which was the cost of passage on a ship to the New World. And he wasn't upholding his end of the bargain, so the judge finally awarded Mr. Johnson full-time, lifetime slave of a white man. That's history for you. That's real history. And in case you're wondering, the first slaves here were the Irish. I know, because the Irish were out in Winthrop, Massachusetts. And there weren't that many of them, but I remember one in particular. I took her to my freshman prom. She was so beautiful, so petite, blonde-haired and blue-eyed and fair-skinned, but she had a bit of spunk in her. She didn't like the way the salad was done up at the restaurant we went to. And of course, I'm just sitting there trying to have a good time, go along and get along. I guess I was a real wuss compared to her. She didn't like the fact that, this was not broken up properly. It was not prepared properly. And she was right. And I was so enamored with her. She was so beautiful. I was just afraid to ask her for another date. And I really wished I had, because we were just kids then. And I think she would have gone for a second date. But anyway, Lilo Gallagher, wherever you are. Yes, I tried to look you up on Fosh's book the other day. Figured, why not? I'm hoping you're still alive. You're going to be probably 71 or 72 years old, maybe 73, I don't know. And I'm just hoping you had a really good life. And you were so beautiful, I hope you had a lot of children, blonde-haired and blue-eyed. I don't have blonde hair or blue eyes. May Yahweh bless. Go get yourself a state citizen passport. You'll have some level of diplomatic immunity, but you'll still have to learn how to present yourself in case you're called before the court. And they have no jurisdiction over you, but you have to know how to stand up for yourself, which is what I'm having to learn. I'm having to grow a backbone here in my 70s and learn to fight for myself and stand up. And I'm working on it. I'm learning that I'll share that with you. They don't want us sharing that with you, but the next time you have to go in before a federal magistrate, you make sure to tell them, no, I'm not a citizen of the United States of America, corporation, incorporation, whatever the hell it is. I'm here because I'm representing this corporate entity, this dead entity here, but I'm a living man, and I don't understand why we're here. And the moment you say you understand, you're agreeing to the contract with them and their judgment. Do not, and it's not yours to understand, it's yours to set them back on their ears. And don't you ever call the magistrate your honor. Always say my honor, because it's your honor, it's my honor that's being challenged. And when you're before the magistrate, it's your honor that's being challenged. So say my honor. Knock them off their centers. They'll wonder, who are they talking about? What he means his honor? The judges have no honor. The judges in this country are not in office lawfully. Sadly, none of them abide by the law themselves. And so we have to turn the tables on them and go after them. And when they violate our rights, there's a list. If they violate your due process rights, it's like it starts at $500,000 fine for each event. My God, I got an attorney or a judge. Actually, he was the former chief of police down in Casa Grande. He was pretending to be a judge. He wasn't in office properly and doesn't have his papers there. And he refused. He cut me off. He refused to hear me. He refused to allow me to ask questions. He refused to take my evidence. He refused to let me submit the photographs or the bills for recent work. He refused all of that. All that due process he's violated. I do not like having to fight. My dad always told me it takes a bigger man to walk away from a fight. When I was younger, even when I was kicking the other guy's ass, I wasn't happy about it at all. I hated it. But at this point, we all have to learn how to fight, because we are going to be fighting. You're going to be standing up for yourself. And that nice young man is going to say, well, you've got to take this bus ride with me to go over here so I can take care of you. And you need to be able to have the balls and the understanding and the presence of the Holy Spirit to say, I don't thank you. I think I'll walk. It's a really nice day. I'm going to enjoy my walk. Don't take that ride. I don't care how gussied up she is, how made up she is, how beautiful she is. I don't care if she was a noble, moral governor of South Dakota. She's trying to sell you on your enslavement, your chains, your slavery. Don't buy her bullshit. People are not signing up for RealID. Refuse it. You don't need it. And remember, they're going to run roughshod over us no matter what. And Trump is going to create the biggest police state you've ever seen. And the police are all going to have that immunity continuing, and they shouldn't be allowed to have that. They should be required to face justice like the rest of us. There will come a day in which you will look for a police officer, and you will not be able to find one. There will come a day when you will look for a fireman, and you will not find one. Yahweh has got everything spelled out in his book there. He doesn't like us. We, to him, are just like Sodom and Gomorrah and their neighbors.